It is a beautiful December day. It's the day after Christmas, and it's like 50 degrees out here. Sunshine, beautiful. And we're gonna sort off some cattle, move them around because we gotta get them grazing on some of the rye that we planted for winter grazing. So Dad's gonna do a little dirt work around some of our automatic waterers real quick, and while he's doing that, I'm gonna run out and check a couple cameras, see what's showing up, kill a little time before we get the cows in. So this is just part of running the farm for deer. I say for deer because that's, I guess, maybe my primary interest in the farm at this point. We don't have a lot of acres, but we do run some cattle. And the previous generations of cattle paid for this farm, so we kind of got to respect that part of the operation. So the cattle dictate mostly what we do. I guess ordinarily you'd like to have the cattle out of a pasture. I know, like, if guys are leasing ground and they're working with farmers, you're not a fan of having cattle in where you'd like to hunt. Not that they disrupt things so much, but you know, if you have a herd of cattle under your stand, it's not likely that the deer will move under it. So you'd like to have them cattle out of there around our part of the world maybe by October 1st. And that's kind of what we shoot for. And it definitely changes patterns. You can tell after you've gotten cattle out of the pasture and moved them into some of these other fields for winter grazing, things change quite a bit. And so that determines or dictates what we do for hunting deer. After you get the cows moved out, it changes the farm a little bit, and you can go in and set up accordingly. So we try to get the cows out of the pasture where we primarily hunt in October. Then we can hunt in November, and then usually after rifle season, things have settled down. Say hello to the horse. But things will have settled down now, and like the forage crops, like we have winter rye, so it's grown to a point where we can graze the east half of that. So we got a couple fields we're going to turn the cows out on that, give them a little more grazing here in the winter before it turns cold. So I'm going to run out, check a few cameras here. Nice horse, real cool. Okay, I don't know if you can see our other feeder. You can, but I can't. Yeah, right there. We'll check that. See what's left. We really like these Bushnell cameras. This particular one is one of the newer ones. It takes really good pictures. So we'll get everything formatted here. I just switched out the card. And I have a really bad habit of not keeping track of which card I pull out and which one's the new one. So hopefully I put the right one in my pocket and put the right one in the camera. But we use bigger cards on these. We'll get several thousand pictures at least on each camera. Sometimes in situations like this one where we have horses in the pasture, you know, maybe 90% of the pictures will be of the horses. But we do get a lot of other game, not just deer. So that's kind of cool. That one's set on this feeder. I'm going to go over to the pond real quick, check that one, and probably pause for a little while we go work through the cattle. This pond dam is a really nice place to catch deer traveling across the property because it kind of cuts this side of our farm in half. The back side of the pond, that's the back side. The back side of the pond reaches all the way to the south fence, and then it dumps into the cow lot, which extends to the barns, and that has a lane cutting down about a quarter mile. So basically the farm is cut in half here, and then this dam provides access from this side to that side. And so as deer are moving east to west or north to south, they end up coming to this point of the dam, and they can move back and forth across it, and it's kind of a pinch point or a funnel for us to catch them. So we stuck a camera, Darren stuck a camera on here this summer, and it's proven to be a really good source of information because we can kind of see what's pinching down to this point and moving across this fence line. So I'm gonna go check that, see what we see. Even without having a camera here, where there's plenty of sign that could help us figure out that the deer are crossing here, this is a high traffic area. You can see rubs all the way in here. This brush was caught getting rubbed on all the way up to here. The camera's sitting right there, but you can see rubs all along here. Big rub right there, and all the way down. So all of this brush on the back side of the dam has just been thrashed, and a couple of times we actually got those bucks on camera rubbing that brush. So even without a camera here, this is valuable information when you're scouting a property. We're running about an 8 gig card, 4 to 8 on these trails where we don't get as many pictures, but I like to have more space than less, I guess. On most of these, if they're on a feeder or an area where the deer are going to be real slow, we'll have it set on 1 picture, but these cameras can take up to 3 pictures per instance. And on a trail where they might be moving fast through, we'll have it set on 3 pictures, and usually the highest megapixels that it can support. Oh, gotta make sure that that actually formatted. Yeah, it looks like it did. Hang on, I gotta get the lock off this thing. Well, we got the cows all sorted around, and we got a little extra time here real quick before it gets too late. I'm gonna go check a camera we set to video mode here a couple weeks ago. I guess it's just a week ago. But the cows are likely gonna end up in this rye field, and we don't need a bunch of cow videos. So I'll go pull the card out of this camera and switch it back to photo mode. Hopefully we got some neat video. It's not terribly practical at this time of year, but sometimes it's neat to play around with these cameras and see what they can do for us. So I'll pull that card real quick and check one more camera probably, and call it a night. It's turning out a little bit dry. We need some moisture, and they're calling for chances of snow next week. So hopefully we get something or some rain, get things greening up a little bit more. I know it's in the winter, but these fields need to be green, so we'll see. Right there's the camera. I'm going to pull the card out of it, see what happened on it. Got our little mineral block, and Dad's been putting some corn out here throughout the fall. But this field is going to get grazed here pretty quick as soon as we get fence checked and fixed if there's any repairs. I know the electric part needs to be repaired because the deer ran through it. But we've got a stand right there, and we didn't actually hunt that this fall, but in years past we've Seen quite a few deer from that stand, and we can watch this field pretty easily, so it's kind of our go-to if we want to see deer. But that's just strictly a deer trail from this fall coming through that gate, so plenty of movement and activity out here. A nice little rub right there. So now this will all change here pretty quick when the cows get out here, but that's okay. We'll let things adjust, and it's about the way it goes every year, so we'll see what happens. There had been a buck that we'd seen a lot out here on this field throughout the fall, and he had really tall brow tines. He was not a real old buck, but he was real tall tined, fairly narrow rack, real tall brow tines, and some tines coming off the back of his one side right down next to his skull behind his ear. But I think he got taken during rifle season by the sounds of it, so that's too bad. He would have been a really nice deer next year. Well, he was a pretty decent deer this year, to be honest. But we saw him a lot, almost every night out here on this field through October. He was out, and got some really cool pictures of him. But he was very visible. He was moving a lot across our property, and then, like I said, from the sounds of it, across the neighbor's property to the south. And I think he was a deer that was shot during rifle season. The good news is there's a lot of young bucks showing up here after season. So if any of them survive, which they should, and grow up a little bit, we should be in good shape. But it seems like a lot of them are really busted up. So there must be a large number of bucks. They're really fighting a lot this year. So we'll go check that other camera and see what's happening down there. This camera has been run almost continually since 2011. So it's a nice little Bushnell, and we run it with the lock box and then a locking cable around it as well. But a pretty good little setup and pretty impressive record. They've taken a lot of pictures. And this is one of the first spots we've ever ran a trail camera. So we've ran trail cameras here 10 plus years. So that's the story of this spot. Still putting out feed. About a third of the way empty, so, and we only filled to the second ring. So probably need to fill it up here in a few days. Get ready for colder weather. Now let's sneak out of here.